Hello, hello, welcome, nice to be here. So there have been so many questions that have been coming in about a lot of different topics. We thought we would approach something a little bit differently than we normally do. Whereas normally we do Q&As in the classroom of Mastering Alchemy, and we also do free lectures once a month and answer questions. This volume of questions that have been adding up just really required something different. And so a lot of questions around coronavirus, a lot of questions about a lot of different things. And I'm going to really address questions more than kind of set something up as I normally do, with the exception of really just one comment. Everything that is now unfolding, and it's pretty much always been this way, is unfolding in layers. And so as this whole process is happening, these layers are expanding. They're not as compressed. And yet you can't just say, if X, then Y. That's why life is working this way. There really are no if X, then Y answers. This is happening, and therefore that's the reason. I'm going to begin to say, pay attention to that aspect, because in that 3D world that we live in, if X, then Y, go immediately to some solution or preconceived notion. Many of those preconceived notions are based on preconceived beliefs and habits and unconscious awarenesses that just allow you to see something, hear something, and then have a conclusion for it. To a great extent, and I'm going to try not to go here to any level at all, a lot of the conspiracy theories that you're watching unfold are really just somebody who generally is unaware, who says, if X, then Y. There's another aspect of conspiracy theories, conspiracies. It used to be, well, the rich are this, the World Bank is that, the Illuminati is this. To a great extent, whether all that was true or not, so many of what today would be considered conspiracies are so blatantly laid out on the table, they're not even conspiracies. They're just simply, this is how it works. So for those of you who have this real focus on conspiracies, or they're out to get us, I'm going to suggest if you can really pull your attention back and decide, what is it that supports you? What is it that allows you to move forward to find something happy? Because once you start to spin those conspiracy theories, or those if X then Y, and without any real background knowledge, it's very easy to get caught up in the fear that the rest of the world is generating into those points of view, those conspiracy theories, or whatever it may be. So as soon as you put your finger in that light socket, expect that that light socket gives back to you something which for the most part is anger or resentment or judgment or fear or some aspect of motion. And you really want to ask yourself, is this where I want to be? Because we'll talk about this a little bit here. I've been saying for quite some time, many years actually, but it's really unfolding right now. We'll talk about this concept of reset. But these two stratas of consciousness have occurred. As I've said recently, the Y in the road has been recognized, transition, and you're now walking down a pathway that's, the transition's behind you. So these waves of light, as they're really unfolding, are opening. And so this space of being able to observe something and then take a breath, rather than immediately having an answer or conclusion, or it's their fault over there. Take a breath, step back, give yourself a little room. You got all those tools, and majority of you are participating some level in Mastering Alchemy. You've got all those tools, particularly that rose, just here it is, right here. This is me, and that's Shakespeare's theater. If you can allow that concept and then stay on your side of the rose, the ability to observe what's going on without putting your finger in that light socket is going to be very much to your benefit I believe, because it gives you a chance to choose rather than react. Choose is on this pathway into that fifth dimensional space. React is what the third dimension is all about. So let me say one again. This begin to perceive everything in layers. If you get it really down here into the compressed layer, he said, she said, but if you can start to let these layers expand and proverbial, look at it from 30,000 feet, and it gives you a lot more room to basically observe and then choose. So with that said, I really want to address a lot of questions. There are lots of questions that have come in. So let me turn this over to Roxanne and see what she has to say.
Okay, so hopefully you all can hear me. If you can't, I'm sure you'll Facebook post, comment if you can't. So over the last few days, we've received 7 pages of questions. And so some of them are duplicates. I hope I get to yours. If I don't, I apologize for that. Jim, let's see. This first one is from Madalena. How can I work through this deep, always running background anxiety from not knowing what's next while not having the opportunity to distract myself from it?
Okay. So there's always something next. You know, in present time, you always have the next present time moment that shows up. In 3D world that we all grew up in, we call it linear time. Oh, there's a future out there. There's a past back here. But where this is all going, it's absolutely about present time. It's being right here, right now, and then there's another moment of present time right in front of it. A lot of the anxiety that people are feeling are twofold right now. One is this anxiety of, I'm not good enough, I didn't do it right, somebody's going to yell at me, I didn't pass the test and I'm in trouble. All the past time experiences that have accumulated into this sensation in the body, this emotion in the body that is simply on. To a great extent, it's always there. Sometimes you can not pay attention to it. Much of the time you don't pay attention to it. It's just simply underlying. It's a vibration under the surface. When you get happy, because it's just a nice day out and you went for a walk with your dog, I'm not anxious. My attention is on what's going on, well-being. But right now that anxiety, first of two situations, is leaving. And so everybody beginning to walk this fifth dimensional, multidimensional pathway, the opportunity is you have an opportunity to get rid of your baggage. It's just leaving. You can do it. One of the purposes of Mastering Alchemy is here's how to observe it, here are the tools to play with, here's how you navigate it, here's how you simply let it go without running it through the emotional body, those of you playing in Mastering Alchemy. But everybody on the planet is letting go of, let's just use this word, anxiety and all the similar ones. Everybody is letting it go. It's being pushed out of your space. The key is if you grab a hold of it and ask, what's going on? Why is this happening? The anxiety just stops and answers your question. Well, don't you remember when you got an F on the test in 3rd grade? Very useful to you at 50 years old or 45 years old. Let it go. The other one, which is very present right now, is that energy that's pushing on your space, pushing on your energy field, particularly if you're inside your rose, inside that energy field. The world is in fear. The world is in a situation it has never experienced ever in this context. Closest thing was the Spanish flu, but there was no social media, there was no internet, there was none of those things. So this is an instant manifestation that is profound. I mean, how can you shut down the whole world without a war? And everybody agreed, and it's kind of just quieted down. Absolutely a first in anything that we've experienced. But as you get quiet, as you begin to hold that center point, the world, the collective consciousness of fear and uncertainty and, oh my God, how am I going to make my payment? And is that coronavirus going to get me if I just stick my head out my door? That's pretty intense, and it's pushing against your energy field. So one of the questions that you really want to ask is you step back and kind of get quiet in your space and observe the world. Is this mine, or is this the collective consciousness pushing on me? And if you can just ask that question from the standpoint, is this mine, where am I needing to be in anxiety? You're never needing to be, but where am I holding on to anxiety, and is this what I'm feeling? And I'm going to suggest, probably for all of you, far more than not, it's not yours. It's the energy of that collective consciousness pushing on you. So,
Next. This one is from Dorothy. She's in level 2. I was wondering how long this shift will take, or will it come and go over a period of years? It feels to me almost like waves coming into the shore, one bigger than the others. Does this mean the virus will clear sooner rather than later, as it would have done the job it came here to do?
So it's a non-answerable question. It's not going to be over next Thursday at 3:12 in the afternoon. Not going to happen, most likely. So this is about this shift in consciousness. So from that 30,000 foot level, looking at this, this is a spiritual transition. This is not something, we're talking eons and millennium of time. We're talking really hundreds of thousands of years this has been in the making. So from that standpoint, when's it going to be over? Oh, it's going to be over really quickly from that standpoint. You start getting down to where we live, and it's an evolving process. And I'll get to this with other questions. So let's just take coronavirus. Somebody's going to ask later on, is this an evil thing? It depends on where you're looking at it. If you're looking at it from 6 people in your family or your retirement home having it and you can't get out of bed, it's a challenge. If you don't have that kind of complication and you begin to look at this from how do I navigate it, it begins to be less challenging and more informative, and you can get it to the point, which I will at some other question later, that it's really a pretty amazing thing that's going on. And so I think I just did what I always do, is answer a big question and then go, oops, what was the question?
What was the question? Well, you answered it.
Okay.
How long, coming and going, how long?
Yeah, coming and going. So it's really about staying in present time and not needing actually even to know the answer. It's not something that if you're managing yourself and holding your attention and well-being, you're just navigating through a lot of other, I want to say this properly, a lot of energy that doesn't belong to you. It's just like anything else, you know, if you look at the world, it's vastly complex with lots of issues and things. I mean, you got engineers building space programs you don't even have any knowledge of, and the drama and the challenge in the game that they're playing. So there's a lot of experiences people are having. They don't have to be your experience.
Jim, this one is from Karen. I'd love to know your thoughts on the virus, where and why it was released, and what the intention of it is.
So where and why was it released is an in-your-face type of question, like who did it and why is it happening? And so there's a part of my answer that simply says, how does the answer to the where and why and who have any value to you? Is it going to have any value? Does it improve your life at all? Asking the question and knowing that answer. I'm talking generally to everybody. And pretty much, even if we said, here's the answer really doesn't do a whole lot for you at this compressed level. But when you start to get up into the 30,000 foot mark, very different answer. So from kind of our take on this, the coronavirus is a magnetic field of light, of magnetic vibration, that is in the capacity of creating balance in life, in the world, in consciousness, in the whole, let's call it consciousness everywhere. So whenever there is a out of balance structure in kind of the spiritual world, there is a creation that allows it to come back into balance. Creation being just something to bring it into balance. Not good, not bad, not evil, not wonderful, just simply a tool to bring everything into balance. In the nature of this spiritual transition, you can't take your baggage with you, and words like fear and emotions like aggression and anger and competition and domination do not exist on this pathway in the fifth multidimensional world. They just don't exist. They're not even a concept in these higher dimensions of well-being. We're in transition to that space. So transition is always about unraveling something that was, and it's like moving from a new house to another house. So you gotta pack everything up. You get rid of some things. You streamline. You make room for more opportunity to come in. That's what coronavirus is. Coronavirus, to a great extent, is a magnetic field that is going to bring everything out of balance, or a great part back into balance. So when you really take a look at this world that we're living in, can you find anything that works? Economics, education, social engagement with people, marriage, religion. Can you find anything that, when you look at the larger picture, works? Virtually everything is broken. Government, how we engage with people. It's not an unconscious, it's not an unknown process. Oddly enough, about every 80 years, you go through this kind of a crisis. You begin to have a new wave of thought. The new wave of thought becomes the institutions. The institutions begin to be accepted and adapted to. But life changes. And about 80 years later, there's this kind of authoritative populace, goes back in history hundreds and hundreds of years. So it's predictable. But this one's different, because this one is really about stepping out of that game completely, stepping into the state of well-being. So coronavirus is a magnet. Another way, it's a pin looking for a balloon to find. World economics, world governance, world finance, social structures, all out of balance. And so there's a correction coming. This coronavirus is the first wave of a number of waves. Hear that really simple, about how do you create this movement into well-being. It's not all going to be done at one time. It's not like your house just burned down and you have an hour to get to a new house that you've never even thought about. It's not that level of crisis at this level, compressed. It's a challenge. This coronavirus is very much, from the positive standpoint, it is reconstructing aspects of DNA to go into a new creative space. It's not a conspiracy. It's not somebody's doing it to you. It's what's the next aspect of transition. You're going to find very, very few children, particularly that have been born since 2012. They're not even susceptible to coronavirus. Their DNA is restructured into the pattern that's completely in a state of balance. Now, maybe some little kid gets born and they die, or they get this sense of coronavirus. It would be an anomaly. It's not something that's happening. You take it to the other end of this, coronavirus is about an imbalance. And so, going back to my little 80-year statement, we're at the 80 years. How did we get here? You had World War II, 80 years ago approximately, and new institutions were structured. Who built those institutions? And then the next round of major shift came for those of us who played in the 1960s and the 1970s. Everything was completely changed over. And then it moved into a more of an acceptable state. Now it's moving into a state where the institutions don't work. How old are the people who created the institutions? 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. That mindset, keep this really simple, that mindset that created all of what is done, which has been really astonishing, is now coming to an ending point. There's two pieces to this next part. One piece is, I did what I came to do, and now I'm done. And so there are going to be people who simply are more susceptible to this coronavirus because they're of the age level and health level, and they're held on to a mindset that's brought them to an aging point and where death just occurs. One side of it. There's a spiritual side of it. There are many, many people in this category of wanting to do things to help move everything forward spiritually. There are a lot of people who are very wound up in the game of the last 80 years. And they're caught up in he said, she said, and they're caught up in the judgments and the fears and the anxieties and the rights and wrongs and goods and bads. And so, are they wonderful spiritual people? Absolutely. But what they're saying is, as they look at themselves, I can't step into these next high frequency waves of well-being. I can't get out of my judgment, my he said, she said consideration. So, spiritually, it is easier for me to leave the body and go to the other side and root everybody on and contribute to this state of well-being evolving than staying in the body. It's a conscious spiritual choice for a lot of people, not just aging people, that's the biggest category, but there are people all along the way that basically said, I've got myself into this space, I can't do what I really thought I was going to be able to do. I'm going to step out of the body and go to the other side. We're going to talk a lot about death in the next coming 6 months in different capacities. But if you can just allow what I just said as an awareness, not a truth. Please don't believe me. I'm not telling you truths. It's your perceptions of how you wish to navigate your world that kind of makes up what's called truth for you. So hear what's being said. If it works, hold on to it. Use it, make value to you. If it doesn't work, let it go. You get people who hold on to it. It's that guy said this, and then that becomes your whole point of attention. Who cares what that guy said? Let it go. Get on with well-being. So there's more to that, but basically there's your kind of run out of coronavirus.
Jim, this one is from Annabelle. My question is, how do we navigate this? 2 years ago, my firm belief was the universe was a friendly place. Whilst my desire is to keep this belief, I'm beginning to question it.
So let's go back to the layering and the layering. First, we're in a transition. So if you're looking at, I believe the world is well-being, and your business just shut down, you just got furloughed, you got sick, this is a challenging place to be. So from that perspective, the world is a challenge. But if you can hold on to the fact that you're in transition, I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they had two basic statements. I'm terrified that all this is going on, and I just lost my job. And I hated my job. It was the worst thing in the world. I was uncomfortable, stressed, and overworked, and I never got a vacation. It's like, your point? Here's your vacation. Here's your opportunity to basically reset. We're going to use that word more in a couple of minutes. Reset. This is a reset. Can you take a breath, step back, get comfortable, and then look at what has just been laid before you? Will it have some challenges? Probably. Will it provide some incredible opportunities? Probably. So how do you wish to perceive this? It's not a world of good or bad. There are, keep it simple, two divisions that are occurring. One is the division of the pathway that moves into well-being, loosening up all of the I'm not okays, and providing opportunities that are going to knock your socks off. You're going to see things in the next 10 years that, it's like being in the 60s as a personality and then being told that not too far off you're going to have computers and cell phones and Dick Tracy and all of these things are going to happen. You have no capacity to make sense of that. So I'm just going to say, if you can allow what's coming in the next 10 years, 20 years, amazing, amazing states of well-being. So how do you choose? Do you want it to be an evil world? This path over here where people are digging in their feet for greed, domination, advantage, opportunity, imposition, slavery, I'm better than you. There's a lot of folks that are holding on to that, arguing for that position. And there's this whole grouping of all of you that are starting to say, I don't need that. I'm really interested in well-being. So to the question, how do you choose? You want to look through that set of glasses, those filters, or would you like to find a vibration of well-being, run it through the body, stay in present time and enjoy the sunset and the flowers in the spring or the fall? It's a choice. And that's where we really are in transition.
Good answer. Jim, this one is from another Karen. I struggle at times not getting caught up in the injustices that are taking place in the world. Can you talk more about how this Mastering Alchemy work is really the most important way we can help ourselves and humanity?
So this space of injustice in the world, does it exist? Absolutely. Is it your injustice that you're talking about, or is it the nature of the world functioning in a way that you, me, we are not in agreement with? If it's, I'm okay, I can deal with my stuff, I can process this, I'm playing in Mastering Alchemy, I'm getting lots of really great tools, concepts, perceptions, opportunities to improve my skills and ability to consciously choose a life for myself and others on my terms. If you're in that position, you're moving along where all of the injustices exist, but do they exist in your world? Now, as soon as I say that, that sense of 3D-ness shows up. Well, wait, it's my job is service too, and my job is to, it's better to give than to receive, and my job is to fix. Well, if you believe that to that magnitude, then pretty much your whole mindset is moving away from yourself, fixing something that's broken. And right here the question is, can you fix that something that's broken? The answer is probably not at this level, but can I be compassionate and caring and uplift and nurture and help people? I'm a nurse and I'm committed to my profession, my sense of purpose. Now that's your sense of purpose, that's your passion. So move it back out to the space where is the world in imbalance? Yes. But right now you have a different opportunity of choice. That opportunity is can I fix all that? And I know it's in transition. So let me step it back from here even a little bit more. You can't fix anybody. You really can't heal anybody. It's virtually impossible to heal somebody. I'm going to heal you. Now, if they've got a broken arm and you put it in a splint, we're really not talking about that. We're talking about, can you change them into something better? Nope. Nope, absolutely you cannot do that. Can I assist them into finding a state of being that's better? Oh, yes. So, and what does it come down to? So they're depressed and you can basically start to inch them into happiness, into well-being. You hold yourself in well-being. The nature of vibrations of energy is if you can just set your crown chakra, your energy, a little higher than where somebody else is, let's say they're uncomfortable, and you start talking to them from that little bit higher state of well-being, just a little bit higher, not higher, a little bit. And all of a sudden you're having conversation and they shift and they match you. And if you're paying attention to it and the purpose is to assist them, raise your crown chakra up into well-being a little bit higher. You start to maybe laugh, you start to smile, you start to say, remember when we had that really great time where we got in our car and we drove to this park? And they go, oh yeah, I remember. Raise your crown a little bit more. By the time you get done with the conversation, you actually are both up here. So this space of mastering the ability to assist others, be of service to others, is a skill, requires present time observation and the ability to alter vibrational frequencies so others have an opportunity to choose how you are holding a vibration, not a truth. Here, let me give you an environment, a landscape, a state of well-being, and talk about beauty. Choose. I'm choosing this tree over here, but there's a whole forest. How do you choose? And so Mastering Alchemy is about you beginning to navigate for yourself. But it's 100% about service to others from being 100% aligned in your well-being, which is where the mastery of providing opportunity to others exists. Hope that works.
Jim, this one is from Edie. Is this era similar to the Atlantis, or am I just being scared?
Interesting question. So just basically take the question that says Atlantis was a fearful place. It wasn't, and it was. So that's a point of view. I'm not taking this on, I'm just simply saying, so there's a place where we hold a point of view and a belief of something that happened a long, long time ago. The reality is Atlantis was the platform for today in that context. A lot of magnificent stuff happened, a lot of really bad stuff happened. The collapse of Atlantis, oddly enough, in all of the turmoil things, who brought the collapse of the Atlantis, just like the coronavirus being the pin to the economic and governmental banking structure of today, the pin for Atlantis collapsing was the elementals. The elementals created the ultimate collapse in Atlantis. A magnificent, fabulous story that goes along with that. But to the question is really about Atlantis was the foundation. And for many of you, particularly in the age range above the millennials, so what is that, 35 on, an interesting thing you might ask yourself all through your life is, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? I'm here to do something. I'm not doing anything. I hear that all the time. But in fact, you're doing something that is pretty spectacular. You hold the dream of Atlantis. So how is it that you keep going to these spiritual events? You keep looking for something more. You keep having this really passion for an earth that is balanced, that is wonderful, and no pollution, etc. You want people to basically laugh and have well-being and co-creation and integrity and kindness, and yet you're passionate about it. You hold the dream. That's the dream. There will be a day that will come, and when we built the Atlantis to that place, we really, really believed we were going to accomplish it in Atlantis. Deep passion in Atlantis of bringing about that dream. And then right at the end, lots of wobbles occurred, similar to today. There's the particular nodes of vibration that we're in. Very chaotic, unpredictable in a lot of ways. And when it finally collapsed, there was tremendous pain in that collapse because you believed we were going to do it this time. You really deeply believed, as I did, we are going to do it this time. And we didn't. And so that pain that a lot of people feel when they start to see the opportunity coming about once again is the pain of, I didn't do it the last time. So that one is going to work out of your space in really fascinating ways going forward. The interesting part, again, about another opportunity in the going forward is not only do you hold the dream, you hold the awareness of the pieces within the dream of what is going to be possible. You know, the ability to basically work with the earth to create, call it perfect, whatever perfect is. 70-degree temperature, the oceans are perfect. The rains just come at a certain time of the day to water the plants. The plants have a whole different configuration of consciousness within them. You just basically walk through a world where the trees sing and on and on. You have it within you. And that's one of the reasons why Atlantis is so painful, because you saw what was possible. It didn't happen. But if you can hear that and then begin to ask yourself, what was that dream like? This is again a big piece of the park bench. We'll get to Atlantis somewhere about a couple months down the road. But you hold the dream within you. And so in park bench, creating the landscape, creating the environment, creating the architecture for a new earth, new strata of consciousness. Guess who's the architect? Creating the architecture and the structure. You are. It's because you know about Atlantis. It's a fabulous possibility too. Not only you know about it, so many of you were the scientists, and it's an odd word, you were the priests in Atlantis. Take that word as a positive in this case. You were the ones that were able to take science and metaphysics and put it together. Create the magic of the elementals, of the beings that you don't see anymore, that created Finhorn, just to hold an awareness of what was possible. The interaction with the elementals to create magnificent creations. Not only do you hold it, you know it. So if you're feeling what I'm saying right here, I'm talking to you. And everybody can participate in this. It's really a remarkable opportunity coming down in the future.
Jim, this question is from Eve, who's online versus emailing us the question. Her question is, if this virus is magnetic and emotions are magnetic, then our emotional vibrations must rise so as not to vibrate at the same level, yes?
Yes.
Or, at a minimum, we must take our minds to that level where no thought is thought and just avoid the lower level of thinking and feeling?
Well, let's take the word avoid out of that question, because you're right. I mean, you're saying it correctly. But see, you can't be angry, resentful, judgmental, hating, fearful, and happy, laughing, well-being at the same time. It's like, okay, which feels better? And as you hold more and more attention, particularly in this shift in well-being, one of the things that's happening in the magnetic field of emotions, thoughts are electrical, emotions are magnetic. One of the things that are held in that field, as you hold more attention on feelings versus emotions, my simple, non-completely accurate statement is emotions have edges. Anger, rage, resentment, jealousy. Feelings, appreciation, gratitude, well-being, doesn't have an edge. So a reference point, not a truth. So when you find yourself in something that has an edge to it, just kind of call it an emotion, and do you want to keep carrying it around? As you begin to identify that edginess, in this state of well-being, those magnetic fields are being reduced. The magnetic field is going away, and so resentment is no longer as edgy, and it just starts to be not a choice that you make. It's always on the table, and do I choose it or not? If it's really magnetic and jumps into your face, it's pulling you into that emotion. You aren't drawing the emotion to you. So you make this shift into that vibration of well-being, appreciation, kindness. It goes back to the platform of words, which are endless combinations. If you start with things like certain and capable, how do I wish to hold myself, the access to beauty and well-being become much easier. Rage and anger starts to neutralize into kind of on the table, but not chosen. Hope that answered that question.
Jim, this one is from Marty. How do I check in to hear regular news and keep out of the COVID drama?
Oh, okay. Well, first start with putting your rows. And this is not a complicated thing. News is 24 hours a day about COVID-19. There's no other news on at all. So what I find I do is when I get in the car to go to the stores, I turn it on for the 4 minutes or 6 minutes it takes me to drive there, and I probably within that period of time have all the information I need to know about. Is it calming down? Is it active in this area of the world versus that area of the world? But let me go back and ask another question to that is, I'm not being funny, why do you need to know? No, it's well, because. No, why do you need to know? If you're in well-being, you're doing social distancing, you're managing yourself, the first thing that I hear from most all of you is, wow, I don't have any fear. I'm not like everybody saying I should be. I'm watching people walk down the street with their kids and they're laughing and people are saying hello, and is there something wrong with me? I'm kind of calm and I don't feel this. Nothing wrong with you. You're not aligned where that is playing out. So how much do you need to know about it? It's useful to say, okay, well, here's where it is in the flow through of things. So, and turn the television off, turn the radio off. You got all the information. You really don't need to sit and listen to it for 5 hours in order to find something else new. You'll know it all within 5 minutes. Is kind of my experience so far. See if that's true for you.
Jim, this one is from Elsa. I'm a coach. I have taught my students the basic Mastering Alchemy tools. What else can I do to be of service to them?
Well, this is in a lot of ways a point in this cycle that we're playing, point in the movement forward, is it's really more about you. I'm talking to everybody. It's really more about you at this minute than it is fixing everybody else. It's you becoming masterful with you. You being able to hold well-being when something that is fearful or not of well-being is right in your face. I'm standing here and I'm having this situation and there's over there out of balance. Do I get sucked into that and lose track of everything around me? It's like going to the movie and getting sucked into the movie and don't even remember you're sitting in a chair in a movie. Are you going to get sucked into what's there, or are you going to be able to hold a state of balance to where you're watching what's going on and then you can say, would you consider this? Or is it possible that we could try it another way? Or if you would step off the train tracks, you still have 20 seconds before the train hits you. That's a whole lot more useful than, oh my God, we're all going to die. You're not of use to somebody in that latter place. So can you manage a platform of words? How do you present yourself? I say this often. If all of a sudden you had an opportunity to have lunch with the Creator in 5 minutes, how would you dress? And what I mean figuratively is I would be certain, commanding, respectful, gracious, dignified. That's a nice outfit you're wearing. I would like myself. I would be able to be gracious. nice outfit you're wearing. See if you can hold that platform. That's why, I say to everybody in level 1 and everybody who's putting that light body completely together and stepping into an amazing space, what are the 2 most important tools that Mastering Alchemy teaches? How to be masterful of the rose, staying on my side, and what words am I wearing as I'm presented with the situation right in front of me. Every situation changes, so how do you dress? What words do you wear? That's kind of the navigating tool of this. But it's right now, if I was saying, is it about service or about being selfish? Hear that word positively, giving to myself, having for myself, beginning to hold an awareness of how it all works, and then being able to freely give to others. This is the time to become masterful. There's going to be much more opportunity going forward to be able to assist those that are in that place of stepping out of the 3rd dimension. Much more so in a point in the future, not too far away. Being capable there is going to be of value.
Jim, this one is from Ron, who's in level 1. While feeling compassion for all the difficult changes affecting others, I'm appreciative of the unity and harmony coming from having a common challenge. It's so nice to see folks doing a better job of getting along and helping each other. Is that okay?
Of course it's okay. And see, this is, let's talk about this reset right here. So let me define it in my observation. Again, I've said it many times, but we have been coming to a point of transition, changing, something really significant changing. We are there. Not only are we at the point of transition, now that's going to unfold for quite some time, but we are at the point where the opportunity to simply step back and reset everything. It's like, oops, this isn't working. Let me step back and see how I can adjust this. That reset is happening to everybody in present time. Some are choosing panic and not recognizing the great opportunity to reset and look at things differently and let the energy in your bodies even change. But if you can see that reset, you're not coming to that transition. You've now passed into the transition and you're moving through it and away from the transition point. The reset is giving you an opportunity, just like the reset is very much sending everybody home. It's like, go home, take a day off, a week off, a couple days, months off. It's in the reset, if you can get quiet right now, not need, not worry, not have to have. The whole DNA structure is being reset. Now, does that mean you become perfect and walk through walls? And no. It's going to give you a chance of recognizing a state of ease, because in the reset, much of the magnetics of the emotions are simply falling away. You're going to lose memory that you hold yourself hostage to something that you think you did 20 years ago. Not only is it going to get quieter in the body, you're going to not remember that event 20 years ago. And for the most part, those events that occurred that you hold yourself hostage to, one, did not happen like you think it happened, and two, most of them have nothing to do with you. You were just in the, let's call it the wrong place at the right time, and made an assumption it was your fault. Miscalculation. It's all being neutralized. You don't have to do anything except like yourself. Enjoy the reset. Be curious about what's possible. Go for a walk. Be nice to your cat. Give to yourself, and you're going to be absolutely amazed in a few months with something changed. And then the other part is, if I said to you, "Oh, what was that changed?" You're going to go, "I don't know, it's just something changed." Perfect answer. So,
Jim, this one is from Mary, who's in level 2. In your April free webinar, you said that we have entered a time after the reset, after the Y in the road, where some people are moving into a higher vibration and some people are trying to hang on to their status quo. what will happen to the people who continue to live in greed, domination, power over, etc.? Will they stay on earth until they're ready to let go of those things? How will we interact with them if they continue to control things like the monetary system, for example, our institutions and so forth?
Sure. So here's the whole process is basically the transition. You know, earlier in the 80s and 90s, we really talked about a new Earth as something that was just going to unfold. And it turned out you can't get to that point from here. So the structure is now you have these two parallel, I'm going to call them moving sidewalks. You can jump from the slower one to the faster one pretty much any time if you have, or when you're conscious of that other moving well-being, state of well-being. What happens is those people who are invested in greed and domination in the game, and I have to get more material things, and I have to get another $1 million, that 1%, or really call it the last, all through the, it's not just 1%, it's in the concept of consciousness, in that third dimensional space. They're going to play at that game as long as they want to play at the game. They're given a choice to step over here into well-being and have consciously material things and joy and a nice house, and you can have all of that over here effortlessly. But they're doing it from a pattern that is very much anchored in fear and greed. And so even though you give them this opportunity over here, they're going to tell you that I can get a little bit more over here. And so the real answer is allow them to be there. Just allow them to be there. You will see them and you will see the world playing out over there, but they will not see you. They're so wrapped up in their game, they cannot see or hear you say, you know, you can just relax, you can take a breath, you can take a day off. They can't take a day off. They're constantly in motion, and you and I know that feeling. They are going to stay there as long as they want to stay there. They were that parallel universe, that moving sidewalk, was created for them. There's no failure, there's no punishment, there's no hell, there's no evil. It's, I want to play this game, a being says. And I want to master it, I want to understand it, and right now that's where I'm playing, and I want to see if I can get myself out of this game on my own. Great. Give them permission to play the game. Don't throw rocks, and particularly holding their state of being in your mindset just simply pulls you right back to that state of being. If you can recognize that process and allow it to be there from neutral, you're going to find well-being over here more than you can possibly handle. I mean, opportunity just is going to abound, and choices are going to be possible. Allow that to be there. Everybody is playing their own game. You know, this is a place where people get stuck in, God, why do you have starving children, and why is this misery going on? It's, you know, the answer is because they're choosing it. Can you hear that? It's a hard thing to hear. But when you start playing over here, you realize that's a game. It's a spiritual being having an experience. And it's not your experience. If they're asking you for assistance and they're not going to bite your hand, be of assistance. If they're asking you for assistance and they're ultimately going to bite your hand, just simply be kind to them and step away. Discerning, one of the key attributes of finding well-being over here. So.
Jim, here's a funny comment from Dita. She's in level 3. You might remember her.
Yeah.
She says, I really feel so great being selfish. This is Selfish 2020 version. And then here's a question from Patricia, who's also online right now. Can I teach my children the tools? They're 8 and 4. Is it okay to teach them? I'm not looking to go out and teach the grown-ups, just my kids. Is that okay?
Absolutely, it's okay. Not only is it not okay, not only is it okay, if you are happy within yourself, if you are kind and respectful and paying attention, they're going to teach you the tools. If you really look at these young kids, 8 years old, 2012 on particularly, they know how to ground. They know how to do all these things. So you can assist them by saying, hey, let's play a game. We're going to have a tail like a monkey, and we're going to put it into the center of the earth, and we're going to call it grounded. Before you finish the sentence, they've already done it. So these kids are very, very receptive to well-being and opportunity to play in joy. Demonstrate it from your standpoint. Hold your words. Stay on your side of the rows. Begin to offer them opportunities, particularly with the rows, of observing what's going on, but it's a place of observing rather than absorbing it. And when you can give them something that will allow them to progress, you say to the kid, then that's when you say hello to them and offer something if they can have it. I guarantee you, before you really spend a lot of time on it, they will be demonstrating it back to you. So absolutely show them what you know.
Jim, this one is from Laura. When you see loved ones suffering within their limited belief systems and perceptions, how do you know if you're meant to help them or if you're supposed to let them follow their own path? I have a fear of getting to the other side as in passing away, and having friends and relatives say to me, but you were the only one who knew what was going on. Why didn't you try to help us?
Well, gets to be an interesting point. There's kind of three pieces to this, and then actually maybe even a fourth. So one of the things that happens, I watched over the years with people who begin to play in level 1 and then level 2 particularly, as you get into level 2, you begin to recognize I'm of the world, but I'm not in the world. And that distinction allows you to stay on your side of the rows and kind of watch what's going on. What is really challenging in terms of this relationship, you begin to like yourself. And one of the things that I always say is, as you begin to play at this, you're going to lose your friends. You're literally going to lose friends. What I simply mean is, I like myself, I'm enjoying myself, this is really good, and I'm really enthusiastic. I don't need to go to the bar drinking anymore, and I don't need to sit at work and talk about how awful it is. And when you start liking yourself, you realize all of the negative things that you did just out of habit over here. And because you're stepping up here, all these folks, they're not willing to step up here yet, and all of a sudden they just fall out of your life. Now that's not new. If you look back at your life, you've had people come and go all through your life. So that's the first piece. The second piece is you're going to start to find in well-being, liking yourself, people are going to begin to say, hey, you seem different. You're really, can I stand next to you? I don't want anything. I just want to kind of rub up against you and see if I can have some of that. That's the second thing that happens. The third one is the most challenging one, because you start to demonstrate in a place where ain't it awful, and habits and patterns and family dynamics all have played out for your whole life, and then you change. You start to like yourself. You start to be happy. You don't even have to say anything. Everybody knows you're not playing the game anymore. And a lot of times what happens is you start to be brighter and brighter and brighter, and they can't bring you back down to where you are, but they'll try real hard. They'll throw rocks at you to try to get you back here, and what they're really saying is, I want what you have so bad, but I don't know how to unravel myself, let go of my pain, my game, and rise up to where you are. And so if it's a choice of me rising up to where you are and going through that level of pain, or killing you off, I'm going to kill you off. Now, that's the third dimensional world out there. The mastery is recognizing that's what's happening at each one of those levels, not necessarily dropping down, but how do you begin to recognize these people around you are in a lot of pain, and how do you masterfully start to simply provide an opportunity, raise your crown chakra vibration when you're sitting at the dinner table. Don't even say anything, and then all of a sudden they start talking about fun things, and they shift. And so they begin to meet you at that second level where I just want to rub up against you. You look happy. The other part of it is it takes two to play a game. When you stop playing the game, they have one of two choices: to get angry and grumble, or make an adjustment. or take their football and go home, in a manner of speaking, but we're all a family, so that's not going to happen. So for the most part, you have a lot of opportunity to be of assistance, but teaching and knowing better usually doesn't work well when you have a whole bunch of people that are stuck in their own space. So managing your awareness, kind of year one, level 2, year one type of thing.
Jim, this one's from Maureen. Please explain how being in a state of well-being not only affects how we live in the world, but how this will also begin to change the physical reality we see and experience.
Yeah, this is a great question. So this place of beginning to really like yourself, being in present time and liking yourself, you become very vibrational. You begin to have a lot of light. You start to bump into more people that are like that. And then you begin to have 2 or more gathered, and you start to say, why don't we do this? And why don't we do... Pretty soon in your universe, you start to have well-being. Not all the third dimensional universe, just your universe. And then there's another 2 people come into your universe, and now there are 4. And kind of where we're playing in Park Bench, now there's almost 4,500 people sitting on that bench together, just creating an environment, creating the landscape, building the architecture of what a wonderful world would look like. So it's a place where you begin to step into a space that is very magnetic in love. We're playing with that emerald green color code, love in balance, that vibrant state of that pink color code, pink vibrational light from that pink diamond that sits right in the center of the Sacred Heart. Those are intense vibrations that are uplifting, and when you begin to hold them consciously and then hold them as a vibrational field that radiates, you change an awful lot of what's going on.
Jim, I found the evil question. I don't know if it's necessary to ask.
No, I think we talked about that one.
Okay, good. So, let's see. This is from another Laura. With the future being so unpredictable, when you have to make a choice about something and you have no idea what the choice is, how do you decide?
Which feels better? The attention point that you're focusing on, or stepping back, taking a breath, and finding a state of balance, and then allowing the answer to come to you. You see, we haven't played with this. There's a lot of you that are in level 1 or not in level 1. However you're playing, it all works fine. But when you start to get to this place of I'm in the world but not of the world, and you begin to recognize that I don't need their approval, their validation to be okay, whoever that they are. And you start to play in that space, your vibration begins to raise up, and you get more and more of the clutter out of your space. And then you begin to recognize something. Not only do you kind of lose those friends, the ones that were connected to the ain't it awful type of thing, but you start to lose your reference points. And this is a fascinating point. Food that I used to eat, I don't eat anymore, and things I used to think were important, they're not any important anymore. My job is something, it's okay, I guess, but I don't have a lot of passion about it. And pretty soon it's like you lose your reference points. I don't know what to do, not a bad thing. I'm not connected. And inevitably I ask the question, well, how's that working for you? And the person kind of brightens up and they go, oh, yeah, it's really actually pretty good. Pretty good. You mean you're doing nothing and it's pretty good? Yeah, pretty good. What happens right at that point is there's a switch. You begin to lose your reference points to the world you're supposed to live in based on the game and the rules of that game. And you start to get into your space. And the reference points begin to change. One of the things that happens very clearly, instead of needing to go to, get approval from, have somebody else tell me what I can do, you start to find you have an interesting set of thoughts. Yeah, I'd like to go to the movies this Friday night. I think that'd be nice. And then an hour later, somebody calls and says, I have 2 tickets to the movies. You go, oh, what a coincidence. And then it happens again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and pretty soon it can't be a coincidence. And it's at that point you start to realize that in my quietness, everything comes to me. Now, just think about that. What if that was really true? Everything comes to me. I have the ability to have an intention, hold the thought, get into a quiet place, and just allow it to come to me. That's this new pathway. That's what these waves of light are opening up, making opportunity. But this concept is very much aligned in the heart. The game you play as a spiritual being is you create an intention, hold your attention, it comes to you. You're going to find it's going to get us really, at some point, it's a wonderful place to play, is you just hold your hand out and the apple appears. Instantly. You don't even challenge it. It's a way of life. That's a way of life that you're stepping into. But right here, everything just starts to come to you. And it's in that place you basically start to have a different reality. Not very far away from this moment.
Jim, this one is from Billy. So is the difference between the third dimension and the fifth dimension the transition between fear and love?
Very much. So you can't bring that baggage with you, and fear doesn't exist in this state of being, in the kind of this fifth multidimensional place. But what is love? Love is really smile, happiness, a nice sunset, a pleasant feeling, respect, a dignity, a sense of integrity. All those words are love. Every one of them is created in love. Feelings are created in love. Sensations are created in love. Emotions aren't necessarily created in love, or they may be created in love, but then they get edgy and they start to have more distraction from well-being into fear. So, very correct.
This one is from Melina in Idaho. When the COVID-19 issues started, I felt really out of balance emotionally, mentally, and physically. I ended up hitting a wall and crying for 2 days on and off. Then I suddenly started to feel more at peace. Any light you can shed on what's been happening?
Yeah, pretty much everything we're talking about. As you begin to enter into this transitional period, you're in the transition, and you start to move along that kind of moving sidewalk into well-being, you can't take your baggage with you. And so there's a kind of the abruptness has already happened, or the smoothness has already happened, but using the word abruptness is pretty soon everything just starts to leave. And if we were able to sit down for those 2 days and at every point of crying and uncomfortableness, ask the question, what's going on? It might be, well, I'm worried about this coronavirus. But if there was another question, what's behind that? What's the picture behind that? And all of a sudden you realize, well, the last time I felt this is when my boyfriend broke up with me in high school. Terrible, terrible experience for me. Well, that terrible experience is still sitting there, leaving. And what about this? Well, it was a time where I thought I was going to get accepted to this college and I got rejected, and my whole life ever since has been in this feeling of not being good enough and being rejected. No. So picture behind the picture. So much of what is on the surface, just like coronavirus is being labeled the cause of the economic downturn in the world, that economic downturn in its what's still coming, severity hasn't even happened yet for this economic downturn, it would have happened within a year and a half. Just the trajectory was such that the amount of lies in the world economic system, in the government management of money, the Federal Reserve banks, the European Central Reserve Bank, the Japanese, it's all a lie. Now, that's not meant to be a conspiracy or I'm telling you a story. They have built an institution, 80 years, on a basic belief system that they could manage this world economy. The thing is, the world economy has gotten this big and they've only gotten this big. And the marketplace and the thought of individuals creating far outweigh an institution's ability to manage a herd of cats. You can manage one cat, you can kind of deal with 2 cats, but 8,000 cats at one time, impossible to manage. the banking system, the world financial system to a great extent, without beating any of this up, the governmental system, is all an institution trying to do something that's in the past, that doesn't have the capacity to manage what we are becoming and what we are. And so you got this very edgy system right now. And I did it again. I answered the question but missed the question.
Was this the one about feeling out of balance emotionally, mentally, physically?
Okay, thanks. So a lot of this out of balanceness that we are feeling is stuff coming up, and there's pretty much guaranteed there's a picture behind the picture. We talk about this when we start using the rays, the 8th ray particularly, 4th, 5th, 6th rays, these constructs of how does everything happen? How does Creator create a universe? How do we play in it? What are the really structures that make everything happen? The rays of creation. So what are the fabrics, pictures behind the pictures? How does it all come together? When you start playing in that context, the ability to rearrange the chairs at the table become very, very available to you without having a lot of emotional pain.
Jim, this one is from Deb, who's online. She's in level 1. So many times when I hear you speak, I feel like I've heard this before. Is it possible that I'm reliving this experience on our planet and I've done it before? And how can I make sure I don't have to do it again?
I thought you were just going to say, because I've heard you say it over and over and over. This is a transition, and mostly in terms of the question, I had my first breakup with my girlfriend. I got my F in geometry. I did all these things, and I was embarrassed about it, or I was in pain. So I don't know what to do with that pain, so I'm just going to put it back here in my backpack, and I'm going to forget about it. I don't know how to get rid of it, so I'm just going to stuff it somewhere where it's out of the way. What you've stuffed that's out of the way is now bubbling back up the surface, because you can't take your baggage with you on this journey. So some of it may feel like you've done it again. It may be presenting to you in different size, shape, colors, events. You don't remember what that particular event was, but I certainly remember this feeling, and I don't like this feeling. An anxiety, a fear, a belief that is going to lead to a problem. A lot of that is what's beginning to come out of the body. And one of the things about Mastering Alchemy is you don't have to run it through the emotional body. Just because it wasn't comfortable once before, this is where you start playing with that 4th, 5th, 6th ray, where you start to recognize that you have a massive amount of opportunities if you approach something different than you have believed is the only way to solve it in the past. So, yeah, I think that would be my answer.
Jim, this one is from Monica, who's in level 3. I'm a registered nurse and on the front line. There is much fear around me, and I'm not sure what my role is at this time.
Well, I would say pretty much what I've been saying all along is standing in the middle of fear generates a lot of pressure on the edges of your field, and it creates a massive distraction. Fear is very distracting, and really gets into focus. It takes focus out. It becomes very erratic, and there's no balance, there's no center point. So the place that allows an ability to make good decisions is really right in that center point. You know, I haven't touched on that in this conversation so far, but that center point of the sphere, or right in the center of my rose, my aura, and I'm on my side of the rose. It allows you to take a breath and stay in present time. And the key is really staying in present time and recognizing I see what's around me, but I don't have to be the effect of what's around me. And then I can choose how I wish to navigate what's around me.
Jim, this one is from Marta. Is there an actual difference between my own fear or the collective fear? I'm a bit confused. I understand that if I have integrated all of my own fears, the collective fears wouldn't affect me. So it must be that I still have fear that is being triggered by these outside events. Could you please talk about this?
Yeah, that'd be very correct. So one of the things, even though I have my rose up here and that's Shakespeare's theater and this is me, that's all correct. But what have I accumulated over years in terms of belief systems and habits and mannerisms and truths that I hold, that I define myself by, that in fact aren't true or aren't my issue or whatever it may be. So often you wind up with, I use this example a lot, somebody shows up in front of me and they're wearing a blue shirt and I go into anxiety or panic and I have no reason, I don't know why. And do you know that person with blue shirt? No, but they're not a nice person, and they're probably a mean person, and I really don't want to know that person. You ever do that? But if you really get back, you realize that every time my father used to hit me, he wore a blue shirt. Is there any relationship between that person and me? Nope. Yep. Blue shirt. So if X, then Y. Is that conscious? No, it's not conscious. As you start to play in 4th, 5th, 6th ray, 8th ray, strings of thought, understanding that you have the capacity in present time to rearrange the past and also create a future. But you don't have the capacity to change the past in the past or create a future in a future. Can't fix it in those places. They don't exist. But right here, you start to realize that a lot of this that I'm experiencing really has very little to do with me, and I can basically let that piece of fear go away. So yes, a lot of what's going on the outside is what's going on the inside. One of the key pieces to it too is when you start to play inside your rose, you really, this is not a protection rose. It doesn't say keep out. But in fact, it just says, this is me and you're not welcome in here. It's not a defense mechanism, because as soon as you make it a protection rose, you're saying to the universe, I'm protecting against something, which is an attention point that just quite often draws more of the same. So if you just say, this is my space and it's mine, period. Then the ability that a lot of that fear, anger in the world right now, where it used to pass right through you without any discernment, now it just kind of hits it and deflects off. It's like, no thank you. It's really what that rose becomes. And your ability to sort becomes much more manageable. This isn't even mine. And it just starts to disappear.
Jim, I have 3 or 4 people here asking a similar question or making a similar observation. They're observing that there's fear all around them. However, they're feeling quite happy with their life.
Yes. So there you are. I'm on my side of the rose, whether you're conscious of it or not. You know, whether you're playing in Mastering Alchemy, you've figured out how to do that. Most of you figured that out. But you're in this reset. And it's as if you're in your own bubble called reset. And as long as you can kind of sit here and recognize, wow, I feel quiet, I feel content, I'm actually happy. Many of you have called and said, you know, this is the strangest thing in the world, is I'm happy. I haven't been happy ever, or since 4 years old, and I'm happy. And I'm realizing that most of what I constantly feel is, you know, my mother's anxiety, my grandmother's terror of fear, my father's lack of being able to make money to support the family, create the story. And all of a sudden it's like, I don't have that in my space anymore. And that's something that is going to happen, I think, on this moving sidewalk going into multidimensionality more and more.
Jim, this one is from Anne. I am seeing conspiracy theorists popping up all over and misinformation spewing out. Could you address this?
Yeah, I talked about that right at the beginning a little bit. And so this aspect of conspiracy theory, so 2 layers. It used to be 80s, 90s, all these conspiracies. To a great extent, most of it was correct. There were conspiracies. Whoever, the government, whomever, were able to keep things quiet and just do what they were doing over here, and no real access was there, but kind of everybody knew it was there. So, but it was a theory because I couldn't prove it. Now there's very few things that you can't prove. Many things are in fact on the table that people would call something that they are out to get me. Minus that piece, a lot of what is happening right now is people believe there's lots of things going on, and because you have incredible instant access to social media, you know, I saw a pink alien show up last Thursday on my front doorstep, and then 6 other people go, he came to my house too. And there you go. And now you've got all these people believing there's pink aliens that are showing up on your doorstep, when in fact it really was, I was drunk that night and etc. So, do you want to believe in conspiracy theories? Does it support you? The real key question is, how does it feel? Do I really want to get pulled into this magnetic field of fear and doubt and them and us? Them and us is third dimension. It's not fifth dimension. Them and us. And so kind of stop and pause and see, is it really something you want to hold a lot of attention on or in? If the answer is yes, then are you willing to accept that vibrational field of energy that comes with that conspiracy theory? And then if the answer is yes, is there a solution to it that you wish to pursue, or do you just want to sit and me too, me too, me too, ain't it awful, and yes, they're out to get us, and then you got to stop at some place and say, how does this feel? And am I enjoying my life, or am I just simply spinning in a space that really provides no end game? But 2 years from now, I'll say, you get to ask, did I have a wonderful time for 2 years, a year, 6 months, the last 2 hours? Was that fun? Did I feel successful? Did I make something happen? And if you can get to that point before you jump into it and recognize more often than not the answer is going to be no, then don't put your finger in that light socket if that would be the outcome or your conclusion.
Jim, here's a funny comment from somebody online. David, I am in awe that we are finally here. I've waited my entire life and many before this for this, but I imagined it so differently. I thought it would be the zombie apocalypse, but it's not nearly that painful. It's amazing.
Oh, I don't know. Keep your attention over in that third dimensional world for another little while, and you may find the zombies actually showing up. But for the most part, it's a choice. Is it a choice you want to pursue?
Here's a question from Don, who's in level 3. My question or observation is, when this all began early March, my dreams absolutely exploded. I could not seem to stay above the tremendous collective outcry. I thought perhaps we were being called to do work on the astral plane. What are your thoughts? The dreams have calmed down since, but I was wondering if you or any other Mastering Alchemy people have experienced this.
So let's define the fourth dimension and the astral plane and the dream state in kind of simple terms if we can. So the fourth dimension and the astral plane are the same thing. The astral plane is a part of the fourth dimension. Let me put it that way. The fourth dimension is not physical. There is nothing physical in the fourth dimension. It's a thought realm. And in that thought realm, one of the things that happens is all the thoughts ever thought in the physicalness that did not get manifest into physicalness now reside in the fourth dimensional thought realm. And so if you think about that from this standpoint, you ever wonder, where does the thought go that you just thought now that you've thought it, but not thinking it anymore? You know, thoughts just don't go poof and go away. They are thought form. They're tangible densities. If you think about it from the standpoint of density, have you ever stepped into a room where two people were really angry and at each other, or sat at a meeting where people were angry at one another? It's like, I don't think I want to be here. Really dense, really compressed, about to be explosive. That's a density of thought form. On the other end of it, butterflies, puppy dogs, little babies. Oh, isn't that cute? There's a density to that thought form. One is really dense, the lower aspect of the fourth dimensional plane, and others are really airy and light and fluid, the other end of the thought form. So in there is all the thoughts ever thought, of which an awful lot are really ugly or angry thoughts. When you go to sleep at night, if you go to sleep from a state of fearful or having an attention point on, let's say, what's going to happen to the world and the world's going to be destroyed, or you're angry about something, and you go to sleep in that vibration, and then what happens is the etheric body, or it's more appropriately called the etheric body, not the astral body, and the physical body dock at the meridian acupuncture points. That's the docking place. And so you say, I'm going to sleep, and you start to loosen up and you start to go to sleep. Most of the time you're asleep in the first short period of time. You just think you're still thinking because you're so close to the body. But if you're angry and resentful or holding a lot of that type of energy, you start to go out of the body. That magnetic field of thought that you're holding becomes really magnetic in the astral plane portion. And all the thoughts, like the thoughts you're holding in the etheric body, begin to magnetically inform as pictures or configurations. For the most part, you're going away from the body, going out, so you don't remember dreams going out, but you're in them. And when you come back to pee in the middle of the night or come back into the body, you're in them. And then when your body connects, all of a sudden, all of what you are just looking at in the astral plane begins to be exactly what you're feeling in the body. So going to sleep in that space is something you want to basically see if you can go to sleep in a good space. There's another part of the astral plane that goes on in the upper portion of it, in the fourth dimension, is where a lot of times you have lucid type of dreams, but there is a lot of class work. We teach in that upper portion of the fourth and lower fifth dimensions. You go to classes every night, as a spiritual being. Other aspects of you, the layers of you that you've forgotten or haven't hooked up to the body, which is what Mastering Alchemy is all about, putting yourself together. In those other layers and aspects of yourself, that goes to school, that goes to classes, that goes to how do you become the creator of the apple appearing in your hand. So a lot goes on in your sleep space, but the fear of the world and your attention on the fear, and you go to sleep with that, that's where you're bumping into all of that everybody else's fear that is very prominent at this minute because there's so many people holding an attention point on it.
Jim, it's been almost 90 minutes, but we have a few more really good questions.
Please.
Okay, so this one is from Ankh. Where will teaching be going? Online?
What kind of teaching?
I think she teaches kids.
So I think you're going to see a major reshift in the educational structure and how it's presented and how it's thought and how it's actually done. I think you're going to see far more team building educational systems going forward. Right now, everything is going into an online teaching level because of the coronavirus shutting things down. When we come out of this, online is going to have a very strong presence, and an awful lot of people are going to basically shift out of the school system as we know it in a way. You may still find that people go to school, but how they work together is going to be something that is going to be a very different educational system. I'm going to suspect you're going to see within about 5 years.
Jim, this one is from Ellen. She's in one of the programs, but I don't remember which. Are we changing into the crystalline bodies?
Yes. Yeah. Thought I'd try something new. So there is, and we can spend a whole lot of time on this. You're moving into a state of consciousness. You're seeing it already in the physical world, and it's called AI. And AI is mechanical and very much in a ridiculously early phase of what is coming and what is possible. And now when I say that, what I mean is the soul thinks, the higher self think, in what we are defining and what we're calling as AI. So the functionality, you actually think in terms of what AI is also, but the brain is mostly shut down, so it doesn't have access to that. That process is all being turned back on in the shift of consciousness, and the resulting product of human beings are going to find that they're going to have a lot of access to processing information and accessing information that we would call in the multidimensionality right now. And it's going to be processed through an aspect of the brain that is, there's two brains. Oh, let me see, I'm going to get in trouble here. There's how you think and how the brain and how the process of thinking and processing operate now. Mostly that has been shut down in terms of what's possible. So we function in an extremely limited manner of what's available to us. As you step into this kind of moving sidewalk multidimensionality, there is going to be a couple of iterations of thinking, understanding information. For all of you, you're going to start to find this place of absorbing information and simply knowing the answer. That happens from these fields of awareness that are accessible through the 8th chakra into your conscious state, this conscious state. The challenge is the rational mind wants to keep messing with it. It jumps in and goes, well, if that's the answer, how do I know I can trust it? And what does it mean? And babble, 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 rational mind. In the place where I said earlier, where you get to losing some of your reference points, third dimension, and you get quiet and you start to realize coincidence is not coincidence. I am now in a state of awareness where I can think a thought and instantly, or approximately instantly, the answer is where the question is asked. The answer comes to where the question is asked. Always the answer and the question are in the same place, but we're so busy in the rational mind and in our mindset of the world, we move away, immediately move away. The answer sits here, we move away. This aspect of absorbing, the rational mind is going to get trained into, and many of you are already experiencing this, a place where you can allow information and then assess it, which is very different than thinking it. And so this first wave is very much already in motion, very much around what I just said. There's an aspect within the 8th chakra that allows for a override, not the right word, rewrite, turning on, let's call it turning on of, it's not just the brain, it's all the information and the memory systems that are held in the aura. Massive memory capacity in the aura, but it's not scientific, so you can't prove that, but just allow that for a moment. Then there's another overlay that is going to be much more, it would be referred to as the Christed mind. The mind, if you read the books like Anna, grandmother of Jesus, great book. It's particularly Mastering Alchemy, some of these conversations we're going to start to have with Yeshua and Metatron and others in the teaching structure is changing in the text of the information of the Course. You're going to start to find that Christed mind is getting turned on, particularly those of you who are engaging with the soul, the oversoul, the Christed oversoul, the higher self, the etheric body, the causal body, putting all those together in kind of year 2 of all this work. That rewrite is going to allow you to start accessing a mind that thinks very much from this multidimensionality. It transfers the brain. The light body comes into play, alters 7 different strands of DNA, basically builds an entire system, and you begin to draw from a consciousness that is not available to you right now. DNA changes, the physical body becomes much more crystalline in structure. Don't put a lot of definition on what crystalline means. It's somewhat different than most people think. But you become less dense in this next go around where we're playing. So really pretty remarkable things out in this immediate future in well-being.
Jim, two more questions. This one's
Sure.
from Carrie Beth. When you talk about the financial system collapsing even more in the future, I feel concerned about how my spouse and I will be able to have enough resources to live on in that future. We're about 8 years from retirement and don't have a lot of years to, quote, ride out a major economic collapse. What's the best way I can approach the current situation so that we will have enough in the future?
So I don't give advice in this area. It's too fluid and challenging, except for, I've been saying this for some time, don't wait until it's too late. Go and sit down and review your 401 plan, your retirement plan, and don't be just simply accepting, especially if it's at a Charles Schwab or some of these guys are there to basically sell you something. And if that something is clearly not working for you, you just watched a 30% hit basically on your 401 in there. Right now it's a temporary reprieve, so you're in good shape right now, but really be very clear. If you're going to leave your money in stocks and bonds, know why you have your money in that stock and that bond. Just don't accept your broker unless you really love this guy and he's clearly got your best interest in mind. If it's a casual relationship, go and do your homework, go and visit it, see if that stock is really something you want to have. If you have a chance to basically pay attention is my answer. You're right, you don't have a lot of time. And a lot of people in 2001 were hurt very badly. They've recovered. They were hurt very badly again in 2008, and they've recovered to some extent. If you get hurt in this time, you do not have necessarily a lot of room, because now you're 20 years older than you were in 2001. Do your homework, go pay attention to your finances. That's the answer. Get out of debt as best as you possibly can without causing yourself some difficulty. Some of these credit cards have 30% interest on it. It's an absolute sin. It's blatant theft. And so, if you can reduce your credit card debt, do so. Pay attention is my answer without giving advice.
Jim, this one can be our last one unless something pops up on my screen before you answer it.
Don't say that, because
this is from Laura. Thank you for this. Where does the need to blame others for what's happening come from? Is it just fear and feeling out of control? And if so, is that also the basis for the conspiracy theories that have come up?
Well, probably the basis of it, but it's really human nature. It's part of the design of that third dimensional game. It's not my fault, it's their fault. We've been really trained well to not take responsibility for our own actions. Third dimension. We found all kinds of reasons to be we're very entitled and we expect instant gratification. And a lot of times, because of the level of, particularly over the last perceived 10-year period of time, things are easy. You have access to the most amazing things. Whereas if you went back 20 years even and said, hold out your hand and expect something to appear, 20 years ago you would clearly have said that's an impossibility. We're so used to being serviced and not taking responsibility and being very unconscious to managing ourselves and unable to deal with crisis if it really occurs. And so this is a period of time where things are going to change really significantly going forward. And for some, it's not going to be an easy transition. So this place of blame is really a very useless action with regard to well-being. It's their fault that I don't have. You still don't have after you get done getting all wound up, and it's their fault that I don't have. Simply words like blame and guilt and worry. You know, in Mastering Alchemy, 8th ray, we put those three together because it's a triangle and it's a pattern that needs to be taken apart as a triangle. Those words, just ask yourself, does this support an outcome when I'm in these vibrations? Is the vibration edgy and uncomfortable? Then it's an emotion, not a feeling. Really start to notice these things and ask yourself, am I being served well by being in this space? And if the answer is no, take a breath, step back, sit down, ground, go for a walk, whatever it takes. Shift your attention point to, okay, this is my reality right in front of me. How would I like to engage in this reality? It's present time decision making. Everything else is pushing it putting it in the backpack again, hoping it's going to go away. There was a question that we didn't ask, I say often, hope is not useful. Hope is really valuable to the person who is absolutely at the worst place, third dimension, have no tools, no awareness, and basically says, God help me, I'm really needing help, and genuinely aligned with the hoping, an answer comes. But where you're all playing right now, hope is not a useful concept. Oh, I hope it happens. I hope something takes care of me. I'm hoping that somebody's going to pay my rent that's due tomorrow that I don't have. That hoping is not real supportive. I'm not beating up hope for those that really are still at the place where hope is valuable. For you, hope is not a tool. Hope is an avoidance. You have tools and strategies and concepts that are allowing you to simply alter your abilities to be able to consciously choose how you want to live your life. That's what all this is about. Improving my skills and abilities to consciously choose my life. If you can play there, you're going to find some really, really spectacular opportunities going forward. And we're in transition. And you still got a lot of stuff in your backpack. And it's all evaporating, but you're going to bump into it. But it's how you handle it when you bump into it. Hoping it's going to go away, good luck with that. Beginning to simply realign into, okay, I'm certain and capable, I can fix this, I can do this, I'm okay. I have stuff, but I'm okay. You're going to find the ability that holding that awareness, fewer and fewer challenges are going to pop up going forward over the coming years. So with that all said, this was fun. I'd like to do this. We'll do it again. And let's see where we can go. Go out and have yourself a lovely day wherever you are in the world. Blessings.